Tonight's family dinner at my sister Rebecca's mansion was more than just a get-together. It was my opportunity to finally establish myself after years of laboring in silence and creating strategic presentations. I fixed my tie and made sure my presentation materials were flawless one last time. Investments made through Griffin Capital, my business ironically, I was prepared to present my largest venture. But all I needed was support from Monarch Bank, where my brother-in-law, Marcus Williams, was executive vice president. Marcus had been the one 10 years prior to. Denied my first business loan, claiming my ideas were infantile dreams. He then strutted around at every family gathering, telling everyone how he had married my sister James to save her from her struggling family. Rebecca kissed my cheek as she greeted me at the door, my little. The kind girl who used to protect me from bullies or schoolchildren had changed after marrying into the Williams banking dynasty. She was now more concerned with social rising than with her family's allegiance. "You look professional," she observed, glancing at my off-the-rack outfit with barely any clothes on. Covert dissatisfaction. Wait until you see Marcus's new Italian outfits. He just returned from Milan. A testament to new money, the dining room had antique furniture, glittering chandeliers, and what I assumed were imitation paintings masquerading as originals. The other guests laughed as Marcus cried out, "All bank executives and their wives are still running that little investment firm of yours." Marcus sat at the head of the table like a king holding court, while James, the little business genius, graced us with his presence. What was the name of that bird? The Capital Griffin Capital. I discreetly fixed my laptop setup, and that's what I really wanted to talk about. I have a proposal. Oh God, not another one of yours. Marcus has developed significantly and can recall his previous thought. What was it, honey? The creation of affordable homes, as though anyone would want to invest in that. Rebecca chuckled uneasily. James, the proposal is sound. But perhaps now isn't the perfect moment. I push for a $2 billion sustainable housing and commercial development project. All we need are community facilities. Is Monarch Bank's financing? Marcus almost gulped down his wine. You can hardly afford that suit, and you want to gamble with billions? I insisted on pulling up the numbers. Have you lost your mind? He asked, laughing, and others joined in. My presentation. You'll never succeed because you don't understand how this world works. If you look closely enough, Marcus slapped his fist on the table. Real business isn't about assisting people or creating communities. It's about power and you, my love. Brother-in-law had none, so he got up and straightened his Italian suit. Tomorrow morning, I'll be telling the board of Monarch Bank about our most recent acquisition. It's a large real business that you'll never comprehend, so follow your little dreams. James, it's all you're aiming for. As the crowd erupted in forced laughter, my phone buzzed with a message from my lawyer confirming that the transfer of my lawyer's documents was complete. You now hold 51% of the shares of Monarch Bank, and the board meeting is set for 9:00 a.m. Ready to meet your new hires tomorrow. I arrived at Monarch Bank's headquarters at 8:45 a.m. and looked up at Marcus, who was still chuckling at his own joke. I couldn't help but smile a little since I thought tomorrow would be fascinating. When I came in, the security officer, who was accustomed to turning me away from Marcus's floor, noticed that I was wearing the same off-the-rack suit from last night. Sarah Chen, my lawyer, was waiting by the. Everything is in place, including lifts. In anticipation of Marcus's major revelation, the board members arrived early, she said, smiling. They were unaware of the tiny alteration in the agenda. The previous 10 years had been a cautious chess game between Marcus and his financial elite. I made fun of my meager investments. Through Griffin Capital shell businesses, strategic acquisitions, and hidden partnerships, I have been discreetly constructing an empire that has culminated in the struggling companies I assisted in rebuilding, now forming a network of devoted allies and there. As we rode to the top floor, I remarked, "Does anyone suspect that I was able to execute the ultimate takeover?" No, the share acquisition positions were fully compartmentalized, each shell business appearing autonomous, even though our insider sources claim Marcus is. He is optimistic that he will announce Monarch's acquisition of Rivera Banking Group at today's meeting. I grinned at another business, Rivera Banking Group. The boardroom, which I covertly controlled, was magnificent, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city and mahogany and marble. James, Marcus was positioned at the head of the table with the same arrogant grin from the previous evening. Sarah actually moved forward and placed a document on the table. "So what are you doing here?" "Mr. Griffin has every right to be here. This is a closed board meeting." Marcus snatched up the papers and read the ownership documents, his cheeks turning red. As of 8 a.m. this morning, Griffin Capital owns 51% of Monarch Bank's shares, I stated coolly while sitting down. Chaos broke out in the room as board members grabbed copies of the records. Marcus was whispering rapidly, and his face had turned white. It was difficult for us to know if someone was purchasing shares, would you? I displayed a presentation on the boardroom screen that showed a network of businesses and acquisitions that all linked back to. Griffin Capital was too preoccupied with disparaging small businesses to see them banding together under my banner. Marcus sputtered that the Williams family had owned this bank for generations until you began making dangerous investments and undermining small clientele, I retorted. Do you think those clients came to me because they had nowhere else to go? When the board members saw the whole picture, Marcus's aggressive behavior had been costing them money. All of those little fantasies you made fun of totaled up, and they were nodding. Plans for expansion, he muttered. You can't do this while I've been building a sustainable network of loyal customers and solid investments. Yes, Rebecca is your sister, and perhaps she will now understand what it means. I got up and straightened my back. By the way, your notification of the Rivera Banking Group takeover won't be required because they already report to me. When the boardroom doors opened, Rebecca broke down in tears. Marcus, what's going on, and why is our account frozen? I left him. We must talk about certain anomalies in Marcus's own trading accounts, sister. Notable anomalies. Marcus fell back in his chair, his Italian suit suddenly like the one he had worn for years. You were playing us, no, he said. Marcus, the following weeks were filled with meetings, audits, and revelations because I was simply conducting real business, which you never understand. After our forensic accountants discovered years of Marcus's financial records, what began as a takeover swiftly descended into a scandal. Financial misbehavior, unauthorized transactions, exaggerated assets, and personal expenses passed off as company expenses. I was sitting in my new office, which used to be Marcus's, looking over the most recent audit reports on the illustrious Williams banking dynasty, which was founded on sand. How could you have done this to us? Rebecca stormed in, slamming her hands on my desk and demanding to know why our friends are refusing to answer my calls. I looked up at my sister's friends and your husband's friends. What's the difference? Marcus gave me everything. Respect for a high life status. I got up, walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows, and then I pulled up surveillance footage from the board meeting last month. Watch how your husband treated his staff, especially Rebecca's, who weren't significant enough. Her expression dropped when she saw Marcus scolding a young analyst and making fun of an older board member for brushing off legitimate worries about predatory lending practices. I whispered, this was your ideal life, as you stood quietly as he tormented others. After he assisted in covering Mom's medical expenses, she murmured, I didn't know what else to do after he humiliated me at that dinner. I used one of my shell firms to pay the invoices. I interrupted. Marcus just checked your records for credit. Rebecca fell. Why didn't you tell me? Would you have believed me when she dropped her expensive handbag onto a chair and onto the floor? The little dreaming brother, the telephone hummed. The FBI investigators are here because of Mr. Williams' trading offenses, Mr. Griffin. Rebecca's head jerked upwards. The FBI. James, please understand that you are still my sister, and he is still my husband. I sat next to her, so I have granted him immunity in return for his cooperation. He will be subject to fines and penalties, but no jail time. The Williams family legacy may be ended, but you won't have to see your husband in court. She asked, why are you handcuffed? With tears flowing down her cheeks. After everything he did, mercy, I gave her a framed picture that I had on my desk showing us as children standing up to bullies who were making fun of her geeky big brother because I learned a long time ago that true. As Rebecca started crying, my phone rang with a message from the board that Marcus had agreed to leave and that his final act would be to sign over his remaining shares. Strength isn't about possessing power, it's about how you use it. Officially, the Williams financial dynasty had ended, yet. A year later, the building sign read Griffin and Partners Financial Group, a combination of Monarch Bank with my other businesses. The marble and mahogany still stood, but the mood had entirely altered. Junior. Perhaps then the Griffin siblings might begin to heal. When Zekas passed by, staff no longer trembled, and the boardroom regularly hosted meetings with community leaders and small business owners. When my assistant revealed an unexpected visitor named Marcus, who appeared odd, I was looking over a microlending proposition. The immunity pact had kept him out of jail, but his reputation in banking was destroyed, and the majority of his friends had deserted him the instant his empire fell apart. James nodded while standing, looking more modest in his department shop suit. As I stumbled to the door to sign the last documents of the divorce settlement, Rebecca informed me, "You're moving to Chicago, small consulting firm, very small." He tried a feeble smile, which was odd considering all the fantasies I made fun of. It turns out that they weren't so modest after all. He put a folder on my desk with the final shares of his Monarch Bank that were transferred as part of the divorce settlement. The worst part is that he remarked in a quiet voice that he wouldn't lose the money or the prestige. "Because I have the opportunity to contribute to something significant, your ethical banking visioned development of the community, yes, you could have had me as your ally rather than your adversary." When we meet with the lawyers, I can tell that Rebecca is happier now that he has accepted it. She has found herself. Voice began the children's charity again, and she always brought up the one you felt was a waste of time. He married, and I deserve that and much more. He got up, adjusting his simple tie, and added, "I'm sorry for everything, not just the dinner and the loans." The better man you were. After he left, I strolled through the office floors, observing my staff members at work. Marcus, the analyst who had reprimanded Marcus, was now in charge of our community outreach program, and the senior board members expressed worries about ethical banking have evolved into our central tenet. The entire 10th floor was devoted to Rebecca's charity, which supported impoverished children. My sister had rediscovered her calling away from high-end fashion and social climbing, and occasionally we sat in my. As I was getting ready for a board meeting that evening, my assistant brought in a loan application from a little bakery downtown that said she had met you 10 years prior. I grinned when I recognized the name. It was the same woman who had met you 10 years prior. We laughed about the wonderful old days, gradually reestablishing the link we had lost. Provided me with complimentary coffee when I was having trouble establishing Griffin Capital, and everyone else laughed at an application I submitted that was accepted with praise from the tiny dream believer. The finest form of retaliation isn't always destroying your adversaries, it's about disproving them by making something they never imagined. Marcus might have been correct about one. Power was the main focus of the business, but I never realized that the most powerful is not found in what you can extract. Different people, but in how you may assist them. Construct.